Yoim V Parshas Pekudei Erev Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni Shnas Tov Shin Ayim. In the pasuk it says, the end of the Parsha, last pasuk, Ki anan Hashem al hamishkan yoima. For the anan of Hashem is on the Mishkan, was over the Mishkan by day. The Eish Kiye Laila Boy. And Eish shall be every night on the Mishkan. La'einei kol beis Yisroel, before the eyes of kol beis Yisroel, the chol ma'aseihem, and all of the travels. So the Svarim write that in this pasuk is a remez. Sometimes a person complains and he feels that I would like to serve Hashem avodah shlema, but what can I do? I feel like there's a cloud over me. I feel my batteries are being depleted. I feel choshech anon va'arafel, and that is impeding me. The Tiferes miramas, and it says, Ki anan Hashem al hamishkan, that the anan of Hashem is on the Mishkan. Meaning, when you imagine that you're seeing clouds over the Mishkan, when you imagine that darkness is clouding the Or, you should know that be'emes it's a sign that it's Yom. Ki anan Hashem al hamishkan yoima. It's a sign that it's day. And at the end, you will see that these days of choshech and anonim will shine forth and be productive. The worst thing that when a person is an imagination that there's a cloud over his head and he loses his mitzad echad, he has a rotzen to do the right thing, but mitzad echad, mitzad sheni, he feels he can't make it happen. He feels the difficult, he feels sluggish. You have to know that that's a matziv of yoyim. It's an opportunity to discover the yoyim in that thing. But the second part of the pasuk says, "Ve'eish kieh laila boy." That means when a person finds himself in the eish of the Torah, when he finds himself, he's flackering with fire, he's all inflamed with fire. So then you have to know that's laila boy. That's a sign that it's night. It means like this: when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down to us in Har Sinai, Hashem appeared, choshech, anon, va'arafel. And really, that choshech, anon, va'arafel was an indication of the presence of Hashem. But sometimes the pasuk says when you have an HLTA laila boy, then it's tak a light. Why is that like that? Because the ikar avodah of a mensch is to overcome matzavim which he feels difficulties in and to turn them around. Running away from a matzav is never an eitz. The people think that they look back in their life and they think the days when it was light and everything was easy, everything was geschmack, and the avodah was mitoich harchavis hadas, that those were the yomim hanali v'chashuvim in their life. A person doesn't realize that the days of choshech, the days when he was challenged, and the days when he felt an afal pikein, he moved forward. And afal pikein, he did what he had to do. That are the days that are going to enlighten you forever. Those are the days. B'chol mas'ayim, it says in the pasuk. You have to know this lesson is a lesson for b'chol mas'ayim. Now this is true in all avodas Hashem. Every person gets nisyonos, and nisyonos create a darkness for a person. But the emes, there's an or gadol by him. There's a great light in them, Ezra. Thank you for coming. And for being, again, giving me a chance to work with myself. No. It's twice today. Yeah? If you'll say to me, what shall I do? What shall I do? My Yetzer Hara is miskaber alai. He tries to be machshel me whenever he can. So you have to know that the Noam Elimelech said, and others say the same word, say this following word. Listen to this word. We have to think and ask ourselves, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu give schar to our people, to Bnei Yisroel, for doing mitzvahs? Mitzad HaSeichel and the din, a Jew has to do mitzvahs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us to do mitzvahs, they're for our taiva, and it says, Ein anu maspikim lahoida yisloi, even the drop, and the drop in the 110,000, 1 million kids begin to thank him enough. Why should we get schar? Because the ikar schar that a person gets is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara is constantly noodling us, and constantly needling us, and constantly draining a person down. And he's telling us, get involved with Tiferes, get involved with Avigdor, get involved with Trump, or Cruz, or other shtiyot v'hevel that's not mailu merit for you in your life, ki hu zeklau, other than just keeping you farnum and shtus avolim. And the chol yetzer machshav es liboy is rak kol hayoyim. A person is just thinking rak kol hayoyim, and the person stands up keneged the Yetzer Hara, and he makes mulchamas, a halt mulcham with the Yetzer Hara. And he's zoyer, and he shamer himself from chanifa, from shkarim, from lotzonis, lashon hara, from taivas, from hirurim, from being pegay and others. So then, for that you need an avodah. For that you need a mulchama avodah rabbah to break the koyach hayetzer. And that is what you get the schar for. So this is the opposite of what everybody thinks. You know, here's a guy thinks, today I'm in the mood to learn. Today it's a great day, I'm feeling great today. I have no interest, nothing going on in my life. I'm learning Ishmael. And the guy feels, Today was a good day. But today wasn't a good day. It's not like you think. The good day is when you have a challenge and you feel it sluggish and you get up and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, La'asais Ritzayncha Chafatzti, to do your will, I want, and I'm going to do it even though it's hard. And for that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, for that you're going to get schar. For that you're going to get plenty of schar. So when a person understands that, that's when you're close to Hashem. When a person is a matziv of Anon v'Arafel and Choshech, that's when he's as close to Hashem as possible. He just has to now, instead of running away and fleeing, now he has to stand up and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to be with you. If a person does this, then a person is matzliach. There was you have to know the ikar cheshivas of a mensch. This is a frightening thing, because the ikar, as much as we hear this, the second we get an nisayon, we run away. People that want to learn, masmitim, they get a nisayon and they fly away from the Torah like a bat out of a cage. It's unbelievable. And they think, well, that's normal. When you have a nisayon, that's what you do. It's pufakeh. The ikar of a person's life is how he turns the nisyonis and he finds the or in the nisyonis. There was a certain fellow in Yisroel that he heard that when a yid is miskaber on his nisyonis and he breaks his teva, at that time it's niftach loy kol shari shemayim, and he can depoil whatever he wants. So this young man had a daughter in a hospital in Be'er Sheva, and she was laying there without conscience, in a coma, and the doctor said, we got to get a medicine, but the only place to have this medicine is in Tel Aviv. So the young man said he's going to go to Tel Aviv and get the medicine instead of waiting to bring it back. So he traveled to Tel Aviv. When he got off the bus in Tel Aviv, right at the beginning of Tel Aviv, he saw a mara, a sight that was nerdic challenging for him. A sight that was extremely big challenge. So at that moment, what did he do? He closed his eyes with all his keiches, and he davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he was Eimet B'Nisayim. And then he remembered what he heard from this Magid, that if a person, B'Shas Maisa, passes a test, that's the time when Niftachul Shari Shemayim. So he went over to the side of the street over there, and he had down to Rebbeinu Shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help his daughter. Shirachim Abitay. Should give her a full shleim. When he finished his tefillas, now he was going to the place to go buy the medicine. And on the way there, his cell phone rang. He picks it up, and his wife's budget crying. So what's the matter? She finally calmed down, and she told him that their daughter just woke up from the coma, and the doctor said that right now there's no emergency for that medicine. Yeah. This is the koyach of a person who's misgaber on his teva. But we're not misgaber on it. What we do, we don't realize if a person gets so many yechelis for a person to be piled, so many yeshuas in his life. But a person doesn't realize this, and he lets himself get sunk into the mud, Rahman al-Islam. Now I'll tell you, Maisa, I just read, that happened just now in this bus, Parshas Pekudei. There was a big accident there in Yisroel, and 6 people died on the 422, the bus from Tiferes back in Yerushalayim. And the story was like this. And that day was the big accident, but There was a Nes, there was many Nisim, I'm sure, in that accident. One of the Nisim that took place was as follows. One of them took place with a Bacher who was from Bnei Brak. And the Bacher, that he was in the middle of a shidduch with a girl who was in a moisid in Yerushalayim. She came from a broken family. So she was living in one of these, like Bayis and Plate, one of these moistis in Yerushalayim, and he was dating her. And things were going along very well between them. And that day, they were supposed to get close to the end. And they went out. The Maisa, on that day, somebody from the family of the girl called, and they said to the chassan, sent the message to the chassan. The message was that she owns a smartphone that's not kosher. A phone that all Gedolei Olam said it's us. No. So the guy went out with her, and they started talking about this zach. And the girl told him that she's minded. She knows it's wrong, and she knows it's not something that's royal to do. But it's like everyone else says, if it was only that easy to let it go, you know what I mean? It's a kavaldik in a saying, take it myself. So the Bacher said, but she said she wants to get married to an elder and come into an Elocha family, she said. Even though she has this weakness. So the Bacher lowered his eyes, and the Bacher said to her, I have to make the mismatah. I also have mismatah. As the Bacher said, I also have mismatah. So she said, ich verstehe nicht. Bishlei met me. I come from a bracha in a family. No, so, Kavyochel, I have a teretz. Here's your teretz. But what's your excuse? What's your excuse? You come from a good family. So the Bacher said, Ata tzodeket, your HaRav said right. And on the spot, he said, I'm Mekabel to destroy it. And she said, I'm also Mekabel to destroy it. On the spot, they both broke their smartphones. On the spot. And then they decided that was going to be the mazel tov. No, the Bacher got back on the bus, he was all excited, he's going to go home now, his family. He gets onto the bus, the 402, and going from Yerushalayim to Bnei Brak, and he sat down on the right side of the bus. The right side of the bus was the place where all the nifkoim, all the victims who died, were sitting. And the guy was sitting in the bus thinking, he's Simcha Hashem, Kalan. I mean, he broke this Nisayan. 5 minutes into the trip, the guy decided, you know what? I want to move my seat. Decided to move my seat. And he moved over to the left side of the bus. And 5 minutes later, the accident happened, and the guy was saved. The guy's life was saved. People don't realize we have these nisyonos all the time in our lives. You have to know that. And what we do is, most people run away from nisyonos. They say it's not easy. They say, I wish it was that easy. I wish this. And they don't realize they're sitting. These are the moments to run away from an assignment, to run away from oppression, to run away from zachem. Not Parsha. Not Parsha. But if a person is aymed bin Yisrael, and a person gets rid of the garbage, then a person realizes, the Sefer Hasidim writes that the word, the letters Nun and Samach come together in the Aleph. First is Nun, then Samach. He says, what's the pshat? He says, Nun Samach means run. Nun Samach means also nes. He says, if a person is going to run away from an Aveira, that's Bola Yodai, then Aisalai nes. That's how Hashem is Poiseach for him, the Sha'arim, the Avanes. That's how people don't realize constantly. Here's a fellow listening to the story also. Guy's in London, this place. A Yid comes to Shul. He's a famous Yid in London called Chanan Halp. And he's not living anymore, but he lived in London. And a Yid comes to him one day and he says, Ich bin HaShLTA Yid. I will find you. I'm a good Yid. Okay, so he says, no, what's his? I also have a nice voice. Ich can daven in Hashem. I know how to daven nice. No? So, what would you like? He said, I would like for you to mechabed me tomorrow on Shabbos to daven Musaf. So the Chanan said, the Beis Medrash belongs to the Bnei Kehila. And one of the Bnei Kehila has already a yahrzeit in the coming week. And the Amud, the Musaf, belongs to him. If you want, go to him and speak to him and ask him, Rishos to give you no. No, so this Nichbod, this respectable guy, goes running over to that guy and he says, the Rav told me to come to you and ask you, Rishos, could I have the Amud? What do you want the Amud for? He said, because Ich bin HaShLTA Yid, I'm a Kavadik Yid, and Ish Nichbod, and I have a good voice. You have a yahrzeit? No. Okay. So the guy was misgaber on his midas, and he said, okay, I'm asking. It's not important for you, you can have them. So you think the Nichbod was satisfied? He said, no. He said, do you think I'm going to daven instead of you for nothing? I have a shayla voice. You think I'm going to daven in the shul without any payment? You work for free? I don't work for free either. The minig is a chazan daven tzramid for Musaf, mitzoltim. You pay it. So the guy controlled himself again, and he said to the guy, okay, what would you like to get? What do you expect me to pay for Muslim? You figure he'll say a few pounds? The guy says 200 pounds. 200 English pounds. That's a lot of dollars. So the guy said, what? Nothing less. The guy put his hands in his pocket. He pulled out 200 English pounds. You have to know if English people do that, it's like cutting off their fingers. English people they're not Americans. It's a whole different story. The guy told me it's benafshe. Shut up. Over there, I go fruit over there. If you go to Stockton, you don't get big money. There's no such a Muslim getting big money. But there people don't give. If the guy gives big money, it's like the whole coconut down. It's about them that they're more frugal and they live not as great as Americans. The guy paid the guy 200 pounds. A fortune. This was Erev Shabbos. 2 hours didn't go by, and the Balabayas, this fellow, called Rebbe Chanan. And he said, the Rav sent me a shliach tzibur. You sent me a chazan, right? I said, no, it's a chazan. I said, yeah, it's your Amud, yes, there's rishus. So you should know, I was mevater on the Amud, and I was shoisik on the chutzpah of the guy. And not only that, I gave him 200 pounds, he was dirish for me, to be my Malmaluk. News of us. He said, within an hour, a stock that I had doubled. And I attributed without a suffix, because I was misgaber on my Yetzirah, and I passed that Nisayan, and I broke my midas Avigdor, so HaKadosh Baruch paid me back. Yeah. Ish Pasha. Mensch has to know that this Adar, it says in the Gemara in Megillah, Sholcholam Esther l'Chachamim. Esther sent to the Chachamim a message, and she said, Kisvuni l'Deiros, write me down l'Deiros. I want to be subscribed in the L'Deiros. L'Chayr Tzarech Bir. What's the pshat? Was Esther looking for a covet? What was Esther looking for here? She wanted to have a posterity, fame. What was she looking for? She's like from England. What's the pshat? Esther was be'emes. Her whole life was one of shveitis. Esther was a Yisayma me'av. She was a Yisayma me'aim. B'derech hateva, her life didn't look too bright. Her future wasn't bright. The kind of person who's a Yisayma me'av me'aim is usually relegated to the heaps of Nebuchadnezzar. And this Yisayma was Zoicha to become the queen of Malchi Paras Umadai, and she was Matzel Gans Klal Yisrael from Avos L'chaim. So she said to the Chachamim, don't you think my story should be written l'Deiros? To be a message for Yidden, no matter what you are, never be Mishayish. Whatever matzav you are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the B'Smimis Chazik, and Fakir, Al Yidei the Koishi, if you're Misgaber on the Koishi, so then you're going to be Magia, the Rosh Haha.